Good afternoon and good evening, everyone, and welcome. This is Alan, and I'm an account manager at InfoLink Consulting, mainly responsible for the business side and staying connected with many of you. Some of you might feel over the past few weeks, you received a few too many emails or WhatsApp message from me while I follow up the registration or the payment from you guys. But if that's the case, still appreciate showing up today. I truly appreciate that all of you are coming today. On the more serious note, I'm very proud of what our research team had prepared for this session today. They are the ones who spend their days and time buried in data, industry costs, and site visits so that we can host this seminar and bring you the meaningful and data-driven insights. Thank you again for being here, and I hope today's session brings value to your work and planning. Before we begin, I would like to share a brief story behind our brand. That in 2017, when we first started, our work was deeply rooted in solar. Because of that, many in industry become used calling us InfoLink. But in fact, our official name has always been InfoLink Consulting. This name reflects our core mission from day one to connect information, deliver credible, data-driven insights, and help our clients make better decisions. As we have grown, our coverage has expanded beyond solar into the broader renewable energy value chain, especially energy storage at this time. So today, I want to reinforce one message: we are and always have been InfoLink Consulting. What I'm saying is not just the InfoLink Consulting is not just a name. It represents our evolution from solar into a wider renewable energy perspective and our commitment to supporting the whole industry. Put it another way, our role is to act as your essential filter. We sit in the middle of manufacturers, developers, utilities, and investors and turn market noise into a crystal clear story. On the solar side, I believe we are still well positioned along the supply chain because our network is truly top tier in the world. We talked to several manufacturers from the polysilicon, wafer, cell, module, and EPC, and developers across whole key region around the world. That allowed us to track the industry at the finest level of granularity, capacities, shipment, absolutely pricing, and expansion phases, and consistently turn that into the insight that strengthens our members' commercial competitiveness. I would tell you, as we speak to subscribers, we tend to get a very positive commentary on our data granularity, accuracy, and consistent delivery. Now, let me introduce our roadmap for today. We have structured the session covered emerging growth, mature markets, and technology evolution. First, on emerging markets, we will kick things off with Mr. Jonathan Zhao. Our associate analyst, he will present on India's solar's momentum, policy drivers, and demand outlook. So India is one of the most dynamic markets at this time right now. And Jonathan will break down how policy shifts are reshaping the local demand. And second, on the European landscape, next we have our senior solar analyst, Mr. Alan Zhu. He will walk us through the 2026 turning point for Europe's solar market, what developers need to know. If you are a developer or investor looking at the European market, Alan will explain what you need and know how to navigate the coming changes. Finally, on technology side, to close the loop, we are honored to have Mr. Derek Zhao, our head of the solar researcher. He will dive into the PV technology driving high emission and low carbon progress. He will analyze the competition between the N-type technology and how carbon footprint is becoming a key trade barrier, and also the newest perovskite information. By the end of the seminar, we hope you have able to connect these three angles and capture the vision. Where is the solar heading in the next 2026 and even beyond? What I'm saying is, when you go back to your teams today, I want you to have the confidence and take that data back view. So in terms of flow, here's how we roll today. Each of our three course topics will have 15 to 20 minutes presentation, and at the end, we will bring our old speakers back for the whole 30 minutes final Q&A session. So just a quick reminder about submitting your question for the final Q&A session. We definitely want your question and for the final session. So just to make sure we get them, please start submitting them now or during our topics using a Slido link. You can click on the Q&A chat box, and it will be on the top of your screen, and it should be open on your right-hand side of your window. Just click the Slido link and submit your question later. We will prioritize everything that comes from the Slido and for the final Q&A session later. So just please feel free to submit them any question about the presentation or any further question. Thank you for you guys. Let's get to the real business. Let's dive into our first topic on the emerging market opportunities about the India solar momentum, how the policy drivers and the local demand outlook. So yes, please join me. Welcome our first speakers, Mr. Jonathan Zhou. So Jonathan, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Greetings, everyone, and thank you very much for taking the time today. Today's session, my name is Jonathan, and today I'm going to walk you through the latest developments in India's solar market. We'll look at the current situation of the PV supply chain, the impact of recent policies, and also India's installation and capacity outlook. So let's just begin. Before we dive into policies and supply chain details, let's first take a quick look at India's overall energy mix. Over the past few years, solar has grown extremely fast in India. Solar PV share of installed capacity has increased from only about 5% to 5% here, and around 26% as of October 25. Installation capacity has also surged from 17 gigawatts in 2017 to roughly 130 gigawatts this year. Solar is now the fastest growing power source in the country. And according to India's National Electricity Plan from 2023, the country aims to reach 337 gigawatts, as I remember, of renewable energy by April 2027, with solar accounting for about 186 gigawatts. Based on the current growth momentum, India is broadly on track to achieve this target. And because solar development in India is still heavily policy-driven, the natural question is, what policies are shaping the market today? Well, that's what I'm going to talk about next. So, as you can see here, when we look at India's policy landscape as a whole, we can roughly divide into two sides, the demand side and the supply side. On the demand side, the government has several major tender programs that provide long-term installation visibility. Programs like solar parks here, and also mega solar projects and the CPSU scheme in the scale CPSU scheme here. And these programs are all mainly support large ground mounting plants. These make up the biggest share of total installations. Then we have PM 𝐿𝐴, which focus more on agricultural applications such as solar pumps and decentralized system. These projects are smaller in scale but very important for rural electrification. There's PM Solar Card, which targets rooftop solar, especially for resident users. When we combine these four key programs, they represent roughly 130 gigawatts of nominal capacity. This gives the market strong and clear long-term signals and that demand will continue to grow. On the supply side, India introduced a series of policies that aim to boosting local manufacturing. The domestic content requirement here, also known as DCR, requires certain government projects to use modules that assemble with Indian-made cells. That includes CPSU, PM 𝐿𝐴, and PM Solar Card here. They all need to use the Indian cells made by Indian modules made by Indian cells. And there is a approved list of modules and manufacturers, or also known as LMM, which restricts government projects to using modules that appear on this approved list. Another important policy is the PLI scheme here. It's also known as the restrict policy which provides financial support for companies that invest in local manufacturing across different stages of the supply chain. And among all this, there are three policies that currently have the biggest impact on the market. The first one is basic customs duty. Together with AIDC, imported solar cells are subject to a total tariff of about 2017 and 0.5%, and imported modules face a 40% tariff. However, because India has free trade agreement with many Southeast Asian countries, products from those regions can often avoid the BCD tariff. As a result, the tariff mainly impacts Chinese imports right now. And there's anti-dumping duty is going on right now on Chinese cells and modules. The final duty rate around, I believe, there's 23% to 30%, and has already been set, but it has not officially collected yet. So the market is still waiting to see how and when it will be implemented. And the third, and probably the most important policy going forward, is 𝐿CM. 𝐿CM is expected to officially take effect in June 2026. Originally, the government wanted to require local sales for all projects tendered after December 2024, but this timeline was pushed back, and now the requirement applies to projects tendered after September 2025. And however, when people talk about June 2026, they are usually referring to the final grid connection deadline. If a government project is connected to the grid after June 2026, it must use Indian-made cells no matter when it was originally tendered. This will have a major impact on supply and installations. So let's continue. Now let's move India's installation outlook for 2025. We maintain our forecast of 36 gigawatts here of new solar installations based on official data. India has already installed around like 32 gigawatts AC from January to October this year. So the final numbers should fall within this range. Looking longer term up to 2030, we remain optimistic that India can maintain double-digit annual growth under a positive scenario. Let's say there's a potential risk period in 2026 and 2027. As mentioned earlier, policies like DCR here, and LMM, and LCM requires the use of Indian-made cells. The local cell capacity is still insufficient. If LCM is fully enforced in 2026, the gap between demand and the local supply could slow installation growth. This is one of the main assumptions behind our forecast. So let's continue to India's PV supply chain trends. Since capacity is the core of this issue, let's take a closer look at India's supply chain situation. At the moment, India has no domestic policy capacity and only about 2 gigawatts of wafer capacity, as we know, Adani. Most attention today is focused on cell manufacturing, based on installation demand in 2025 and 2026. India's local cell supply is clearly not enough in the short term. Many cell manufacturers have announced expansion plan that aims to begin production around the second quarter of 2026. But before LCM is implemented, however, this schedule may be overly optimistic. I will going to explain why. Many of India's current cell factories have lower levels of automation and limited technology experience and lower production yields, over around 80 to 90%. Because of this, cost remains high, and projects that use Indian-made cells tend to be more expensive. Although the situation may gradually improve in 2027, but in the short term, the sales shortage will likely to restrict growth. Meanwhile, the situation in the module segment is completely different. India already has more than 100 gigawatts of module production capacity, as you can see here, at 105 gigawatts, which means the market is clearly oversupplied right now. According to our analysis, between 2026 and 2027, India's module industry may enter a restructuring phase. Manufacturers without their own cell capacity or without a stable supply of local cells are likely to be first to exit the market. So now let's take a look at the India import trends. Because of the short-term or shortage of local cells, import data provides very clear signals. As you can see here, cell imports increased noticeably in July and August. It was driven by the expectation that Chinese price may rise due to the policy in China, as well as the temporary allowance that some LMM projects use imported cells. And here, and then in late September, two more developments pushed imports higher. The GST rate for solar was reduced from 12%, as you can see here, to 5%. And the final anti-dumping ruling on Chinese products was announced. To avoid the future risks from AD risk, many companies accelerate their purchasing before November, and which led the cell imports to hit a record higher in October and 12.3 gigawatts, as you can see here. Increase of 150% year on year. However, this level may not be sustainable. Much of the demand was front-loaded as companies prepare for LCM. We expected cell imports to drop sharply from November onward because China's price is still going down right now. As for modules, imported modules cannot be in government projects under LWM. So their role, as you can see here, the module imports is quite low from the beginning of this year. And so their role is limited. The small increase in October mainly came from older tenders and captive or off-grid projects that they can use the imported cells to make modules. This is temporary, and module imports are expected to decline again. Another important trend is a shift in global trade flows. In June, the United States officially imposed anti-dumping and countervailing duties on solar products from Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, and Malaysia, also known as the SEA4 countries. As a result, U.S. imports from Southeast Asia dropped sharply in the following months. As you can see in June, after the ADCVD came out, the imports data sharply declined right now. And then here's August. The U.S. launched new investigation on Indonesia, Laos, and India, with Southeast Asian products facing more barriers in the U.S. market. India is facing a shortage of sales. The larger volume of Southeast Asian sales flow into India during the third quarter, as you can see right now. So this helps Southeast Asian manufacturers maintain production utilization rates, like in Vietnam, in Thailand, and maybe in Malaysia. They all up their utilization rate to export to India market. So from price perspective, you can see in the chart on the right here. By December, Chinese sales with a 20% BCD were priced very close to Southeast Asian sales. After you add up BCD, it will be like 0.049 USD per watt right here. So which are exempt from the so the Indian market will also use the Southeast Asian sales, which are exempt from BCD tariff. So even so, you have the same price, so you can also use the SES sales. And if India later begins the collecting additional 30% tariff, the AD tariff right here, 30%, Southeast Asian suppliers will gain a clear cost advantage and are likely to take the more market share than the Chinese sales. So because the Chinese sales is going to be more expensive at the price level right here. And next, let's talk about technology trends. This year, imported sales in India shift rapidly from M10 PERC, as you can see in the gray chart here, to M10 TOPCon as a mainstream technology. By October, G12R N-type sales, as you can see, is the orange one, already accounted for more than 20% of total imports. Also, this share is still lower than compared to China, but technological adoption always takes time. And also at this year REI event, I've been there before. In November, many Indian manufacturers introduced products based on G12R, and showing that large scale technology upgrades are already on the way. And looking ahead, I believe that we expect G12R's market share in India is to gradually increase to over 30% in the future. Finally, to wrap it up, India's PV market continues to expand quickly, supported by strong government policy, new PV installation in 2025, and are expected to reach 36 to 40 gigawatts, as I mentioned before, which is mostly 50% year-on-year growth. Existing government tenders already add up to more than 120 gigawatts, giving the market strong long-term visibility. And next, in the near term, India will continue relying on imported sales, but in the medium to long term, imports will gradually shift towards upstream materials such as wafers and poly, maybe glass and maybe junction box, as well as strengthen technological capabilities and cost efficiency through cooperation with manufacturers in China and Southeast Asia, and maybe more. And last, at the same time, India's supply chain is still unbalanced. Modules capacity is oversupplied. while cell capacity remains insufficient, we expect the market to enter a restructuring phase, as I mentioned before, in 2026 and 2027, during which manufacturers without in-house cell capacity or without stable domestic supply chains may exit the market. Solving this mismatch will be critical for India's market and India's solar industry in the long run. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you all for listening. I'll now hand the time over back to Alan.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. That was the vital deep dive into the India market. So you have just majority share policy about the anti-dumping and and the drivers that there's absolutely critical for anyone trying to capture the volume in the specific region. Please, guys, just please start submitting them. Your question about and using the Slido link. You can click the Q&A chat box and click the Slido link and submitting your questions. So we will collecting them through the whole website, the whole webinar, and we will have the question to tackle those questions in the final Q&A session. So now we have moved from the high growth emerging market to the mature evolving landscape. The European market is facing an onset of challenge and opportunity as we approach in 2026. So to tell us what developers need to know about this turning point, let's welcome our senior analyst, Mr. Alan Du. Alan, you may take the floor.
Okay, thanks, Alan. I'm also Alan, but I'm Alan Du from InfoLink. I'm the analyst of PV sector. So let me share my screen first. Okay, hi everyone. Thanks for joining, and it is really great to have you here. I know it's a busy time now. We are all doing our year-end reviews and planning for 2026. And of course, Christmas is around the corner. But well, most of you know InfoLink for our solar supply chain research, from polysilicon to module, from pricing to technology trend. But we have been putting a lot of effort and focus into solar system downstream research recently. And this is where today's data comes from. I hope this session gives a different view of what we can bring to you guys in this session. And here is how I will take you through today's session. First, a quick market overview and the grid connection bottleneck we are facing today. Then I will go through how capture price are impacting solar project revenue. And finally, we will touch on NZIA and the new compliance challenges ahead. And for each session, I will try to give you some concepts, some ideas, and solutions from my side to help you better run your business. All right, let's begin. So you can see in this graph, I'm not sure if you are also a bit concerned about Europe's future market growth. Across the top 5 markets, things have been slowed down a lot. The growth this year is only under 3% from Q1 to Q3. And some people are even predict a negative growth in this year. To me, it feels like more like a pause to step back and to rethink where we are heading. And this slowdowns is not because the industry is weak, it's because the environment is becoming more complicated. The solar system is no longer just about cost, auction volume, or module price. It's increasing about de-risk, data-driven, and stay compliant. The power system in Europe is changing really fast. We used to have a simple one-direction grid, and now we are facing a more diverse and also complex grid. As the renewable energy growth, both the transmission and distribution grids are under pressure. And this leads to transmission handles long distance, high voltage flows, and for the developers, the distribution grid is the part that we have faced and we are feeling every day. And more rooftop PV here you can see putting online, the grid has basically turned into a two-way system instead of one-way. More solar and wind is great, but it also creates new challenges ahead. and how can we conquer it? In this chart, we can take a look at the deeper grid data. We realize that the structural challenges in Europe's grid are much bigger than most of you think. After today's session, you can take 3 numbers home with you: 90%, 10%, and 60%. 90%, by 2050, around 90% of Europe's grid will become more than 40 years old, which is the aged grid. 10%, in Germany and France, solar curtailment rate are already reaching 10% in this year Q2. And 60%, today the penetration of smart meters in Europe is only about 60%. We have a lot of improvement in the future. According to European Commission, let's look at the graph in the left. More than 40% of the distribution grid is older than 40 years old. Most high voltage networks were being built between 1950s and 1980s. Some are now even 70 years old, even older than solar technology itself. In the middle of the chart, we are seeing the solar curtailment in Germany and France climbs really fast. It is simply because of more solar are installed into the grid, and we have more generations. And in this year, the sunny weathers push feed-in even much more higher. Now, most of us are facing the redispatch. Isn't just about the transmission, it's about the distribution grid that is getting overloaded. At the same time, more than 1 terawatt of renewable project, solar and wind project, are sitting in the queues. For developers, this creates several really commercial impact. What we used to have a system-level issue is now something that directly hits the project. We have connections study, it will take longer. Final approval becomes harder to predict, and reinforcement charges will increase. And of course, it all comes down to the impact of your project ARR. So now let's base on what we are seeing so far. We can already do some quick early screening. We naturally try to look for markets with a younger grid, lower curtailment, and shorter connection queues. And this part is accurate and is obvious. But how can we do one step further? How can we actually predict the future connection difficulties and improve our changes before the problems happen, before the surprise happen? And this is why and how I believe that where DSO structure becomes so important. In this graph, DSO stands for Distribution System Operator. You can see from this chart, we are looking at 2 things: the number of DSOs in the horizontal axis and the number of households they serve on the vertical axis. When you put these 2 together, you can see the DSO density in each European country. The red one shows the market with only 1 DSO, and the orange one shows the market with one single DSO serve around 80% of households. The blue one represents countries with much more fragmented DSO structure. You have to notice that there is no absolute good or bad, nice or evil here. The high density and low density each have their own characteristic. But from our side, from developer side, having too many DSO in one single area usually means more complexity, more inconsistency, and lower efficiency for developers. In the end, understand the DSO structure here in your country will give you some very practical advantage. First, like I mentioned earlier, DSO structure, it will help you predict the future connection difficulty and help you predict better. In some market, like for example, Germany, they have over 800 DSO company. It is really hard for coordination, grid upgrades, investment, and even policy implementation. And everything moves at a different pace and different speed. In more centralized market like France and India, the rules are clearer and communication is usually more efficient. But on the other hand, in markets where the DSO holds all the power, like only one DSO in each country, it becomes very difficult for developers to bargaining, to negotiate, or push back on any requirements. And second, it makes the site selection and early screening much more efficient. If you understand the DSO performance, you can avoid the high congestion area and focus on the DSO with only have the strong technology capacity, which directly reduce the early stage cost. And for the third part, it allows you to predict the timeline and more accurate. DSO density affects how long the grid study takes, how fast you can get a connection offer, and how long the reinforcement will take. Also, a more accurate IRR predict model. For the last one, it will strengthen your policy and stakeholder strategy. If a country has 100 DSO, you engage differently than in the market with only one or two. With a few, you know who to talk to, where to apply the pressure, and which rules will need to be more transparency. So in the end, as a result, your connection experience depends a lot on which DSO is in charge of your area. From a project perspective, from a developer side, communication is really matters. Building a relationship with main DSO in your area and understand their grid upgrade plans will help you know how long their connection quiz is and how they prioritize their project. In the end, it really can make a huge difference to your project IRR. And for the third part, let's talk about your money, your pocket. In this chart shows the situation in Germany, Luxembourg's bidding zone. So it is the Germany and Luxembourg's case, but I believe that it will represent the whole European nation. The gray bar in the average is the average sale price, and the orange bar is the actual price, capture price. And basically, this price, the orange price, is the project revenue that you have really earned. For the dot, it represents the capture rate. You have probably seen the headline in this year. Many news are coming, and you have seen that maybe in German's solar capture rate have dropped to a historical low point in Q2. This chart is a very typical example of what we are seeing across the whole Europe. First, even though we are seeing the host price are growing up from last year to this year, the value is not really flowing into project revenue. And this means the reason that the main reason is the solar curtailment rate and the solar capture rate are extremely volatile, and the overall trend have been moving lower each after year. In the winter and spring, Q1 and Q4, we are seeing the electricity demand really high and the solar supply is relatively low. So the market price looks strong. The capture rate are easily achieve 80%. In summer, the solar becomes the main source of Germany's generation, which leads to oversupply. And this oversupply turns into the curtailment rate, and as a result, the actual capture price becomes really low. The highest and the lowest capture price can differ between 2 times to 3 times, from 24 to like 83 to 85. If a project depends heavily on the merchant exposed, the risk portfolio is now very different from just 2 years ago. And this is one of the reasons that storage has become so important. For a long time, adding battery to solar project was considerable, people are consider it, but it is optional, something nice to have, but it is not must. In this year, we are seeing today the changes is quickly. Co-location is becoming essential because it helps the developers to handle grid connection, volatile capture price, negative price hour, and the auction scoring system. Storage allows you to shift energy into evening hour, reduce the curtailment rate, and to stabilize your revenue, offer more flexibility to your project. It also improves your chances in tenders that rewards dispatchability or system-friendly behavior. Now, the co-location is no longer an add-on. In the other word, co-location is become a core design strategy. And yes, of course, adding storage, it will add more extra cost to your project, and because you have more additional investment. So for developers or for the project owner, you need to look at the full picture. The revenue from power price, the PPA value plus storage, and all the soft costs I just mentioned in the early page. But in the end, we are already seeing more projects choosing co-location, just like this graph. And many developers are now really serious to looking at adding storage in their solar project. The last part, I want to talk about the next major change in policy, NZIA compliance. In Europe Commission now requires member state to add non-price criteria to at least 30% of the auction value by 2026. And this shift is coming really fast than many people expect, and it marks the beginning of the new chapter for European solar market. The compliance will no longer be something that you think about the end of the project. It becomes the part of the strategy, part of the procurement, and how you stay competitive. Europe is moving from a cost-driven, low-cost-driven market to a compliant-driven market. In Italy, we can see here, Italy was the first country to move ahead, and Ireland, following quickly with a public consultation in October this year. And Spain, although they have their consultation back in 2024, but we haven't seen any progress since then, and their public auction in Spain has also been on hold for quite a long time, since 2022. In France, it's a bit different. France has become a major market among the European market, and it became the pioneer in their non-price criteria. And even though there haven't been a public consultation specifically for NZIA yet, but the existing low carbon footprint, the regulations rules are expected to fit naturally into the NZIA sustainability criteria. This means the traceability, carbon footprint level, and the supplier transparency, resilience criteria. These things will matter as much as the system price, the module price, inventor price, in some tender even more. I believe that the simplest way to put it is the cheapest module may not be the eligible module in the future anymore. Let me give you a quick story. In this story, the example is the French new VAT rules. This rules offers a reduction of VAT rate for projects, but only if their module has a carbon footprint below 300 kg CO2 per kilowatt P. If you look at this chart in the left, you can see the problem right away. On the left, the PPE2 level of 740 kg CO2 per kilowatt peak also is almost every supplier, every module manufacturer, they can achieve it. But once the requirement dropped below 330, suddenly less than 3% of the supplier were eligible. And this brings some good example and good stories. At the same time, nobody was really sure how the rules will be implemented. And in French market, in the first half of this year, it's getting really mass and extremely vulnerable. The price for the low carbon module were all over the place. We have like from 90 cents per watt to like around 26 cents per watt. You don't know which price is the real price, and you don't know who to source with. The distributors keep saying that they cannot source the compliant module. And some even, they have bought the module, but later they turn out to be non-compliant. In this chaos, the company didn't just lose money, they lose time and market opportunity ahead. And this is exactly why, even though most NZIA national rules aren't finalized yet, developers should not wait for the final rules before preparing. We should start now by building feasible, compliant, and procurement pathway and enhance to ensure that you have a backup for the sourcing option. And keep a close eye on the supplier traceability, carbon footprint data, and other criteria that may emerge under the NZIA rules in your region. And most importantly, we have to know which supplier actually meet which criteria, which requirements, understand their documentation, and prepare ahead, so you won't let the same situation we saw in France end up in this year and next year. In the end, let me give you a few final thoughts. In Europe's solar market, it is entering a new phase of uncertainty. But with solar plus storage, we are seeing a new bright future. Understand the DSO structure provides competitive advantage that direct impact the timeline and project IRR. Cannibalization and low carbon price, low capture rate, it requires developer to rethink revenue model and merchant expose. Co-localization with storage is shifting from optional to essential for grid access, auction competitive, and predictable project revenue. And last one, as the NZIA component reshape market dynamic, the developers must closely monitor traceability, auditing, and the supplier transparency to remain competitive. Thank you so much to spend time with me, and I hope today's session gave you not just about the information, but also a few new ways we have to think about the market. If you are interested in learning about more this system level insight and how we can support your work, we are happy to connect. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Alan. That is the fascinating presentation. That was incredibly insightful and helpful for us. So you just mentioned seeing how the European market is shifting really to help us plan for the next few years. We have now the issue of the grid connection, and you have also shown how the DSO map help us identify those issues. And besides, solar plus ESS co-location solution will become a must, and policy localize their supply chain and requirement for the carbon emission. They have just shared a lot of the interesting topic here. Appreciate for your time. And guys, please scan the QR code on the screen right now and just shoot your questions using a Slido link. And if you want to drop your question during the speech, you could also just click the Q&A chat box, and you could see the link of the Slido there. So we have covered, I believe, the emerging and the mature market very well tonight. The final piece of the puzzle is the engine driving this industry, I believe, is technology. With the high efficient works identified and the low carbon requirements becoming a new standard, where's the technology heading? And to give us the clear viewpoint on the high efficiency and the low carbon progress, let's welcome Mr. Derek Zhao. Derek, the floor is yours.
Okay, 1 moment. Okay, thank you, Alan. Okay, good afternoon, good morning to everyone. It's up to where you are. My colleagues Jonathan and Alan just had shared market information related. Next, I will share with you technology evolution drives high efficiency and low carbon developments. I hope my sharing will help everyone better understand the current progress and future trends in PV technology. Today, my reports will include 3 parts. Firstly, I will show the PV technology evolution, especially TOPCon, the junction, and the BC technology. Then we will talk about the low carbon design of PV module. Finally, we will also briefly discuss about prospects for next generation perovskite technology. Okay, now we start. As we know, TOPCon is still the mainstream. Sorry. TOPCon is still the mainstream cell technology and still holds considerable potential for efficiency improvements. In the first half of 2024, with the widespread adoption of LiCoO technology, LiCoO means laser enhanced contact optimization. The mainstream TOPCon here we use module size 1134 times 2382 millimeters, which is module power has reached 625 to 630 watts. The industry commonly refer to this as TOPCon 1.0 generation. Entering 2025 as EPD. EPD here means edge preservation deposition, and the polyfinger and 0BB technologies have matured. Notable progress has been made. Among them, EPD can increase module power by 4 to 6 watts, with a mass production scale already exceeding 110 gigawatts. Polyfinger can enhance cell efficiency by 0.15 to 0.2%, while increasing by facility by 4 to 5%, and its mass production scale has surpassed 17.5 gigawatts. Additionally, 0BB technology can improve module power by approximately 2 watts, but due to its relatively limited efficiency gains, its adoption remains relatively constrained. TOPCon modules include these three technologies are referred to as TOPCon 2.0 generation, with mainstream module power now reaching 635 to 640 watts. Looking ahead to 2026, as many manufacturers now adopt multi-cut and zero-gap technologies combined with EPD and polyfinger advancements, TOPCon 3.0 generation is expected to achieve module power exceeding 650 watts. Currently, 𝐂𝐿𝐴 has already taken the lead in deploying 39 gigawatts of this technology, while other manufacturers are actively advancing their efforts in this direction as well. In 2022 and 2023, the industry was still debating whether the junction of TOPCon would become the mainstream technology after POC. However, as TOPCon has become the current mainstream technology, heat junction has faced significant development challenges. The chart above illustrates the current scale of heat junction. Aside from Hwaseong, Reliance, and Ryzen, which have relatively larger capacity, other players operate on a much smaller scale. Currently, the total heat junction capacity is only around 64 gigawatts, which is 5 below the TOPCon's capacity of over 1,000 gigawatts. Why has heat junction development been so slow? As shown in the cost comparison between TOPCon and heat junction module, the junction costs are approximately 0.9 US cents per watt higher than TOPCon, while their module power levels are almost comparable. Moreover, if TOPCon integrates advanced technologies such as EPD, polyfinger, or even multi-cut designs, then heat junction's power advantages will likely be completely overshadowed. In terms of module shipments, the ongoing industry-wide losses in 2025 have led to a year-over-year decline in heat junction shipments. The estimated shipment of heat junction is only around 10 gigawatts this year. The majority of heat junction manufacturers have halted the production for long periods, reflecting the severe challenges heat junction is currently facing. Although TOPCon is currently the mainstream cell technology, the developments of BC remain highly promising. While the major players in BC are still LONGi and Echo, both operate at quite big scales, with the total BC capacity already reaching 75 gigawatts. Further growth is impacted by 2026. Why does BC technology hold such a promising prospects for the future? First, from the cost perspective, BC technology is approximately 0.7 US cents per watt higher than conventional TOPCon. However, considering that BC commands a premium of about 1 US cents per watt over TOPCon in current market pricing, its overall profitability is comparable to that of TOPCon. Most importantly, BC technology maintains an advantage in module power over TOPCon. Conventional BC module already exceeds 650 watts, and even if TOPCon 3.0 generation also supports 650 watts as well, BC can still further enhance module power by integrating zero-gap technology, thereby retaining a competitive edge in this regard. Moreover, as the cost simulations indicates, the integration of zero-gap technology in BC brings its cost very close to those of TOPCon 3.0 generation. So thanks to its high efficiency performance, BC module shipments have shown significant growth year after year. Global BC module shipments are expected to rise to around 35 gigawatts in this year. Before we have just provided a detailed overview of the current progress in TOPCon, junction, and BC technologies. Next, we will share our outlook on the medium to long-term development trends for these three technologies. Firstly, TOPCon, with its excellent cost performance and continued potential for efficiency improvements, will undoubtedly remain the mainstream for the next 3 to 5 years. As for the junction, due to its relatively higher costs, the junction has faced limited growth in China, with its future growth mainly relying on overseas markets. However, its market share expansion is expected to remain modest. BC has already demonstrated a high efficiency and comparable profitability with TOPCon, yet constrained by the current challenging market conditions. Its capacity expansion is likely to proceed slowly. Nevertheless, its market share is expected to increase gradually year by year. If PV markets recover swiftly, BC's market share could potentially exceed our current projections, we think. Okay, let's move to part 2. Countries around the world are placing great emphasis on and actively promoting low-carbon development. Next, I will share with you the efforts and progress made in recent years to reduce the carbon footprint of PV industry. From the pie chart on the left, which details the carbon footprint composition of PV modules, it is evident that polysilicon contributes the highest proportion of carbon emissions. Therefore, the most effective strategies for reducing module carbon emissions are to lower the carbon footprint of the silicon material itself, or to minimize its usage in PV modules. First, in terms of reducing the carbon emissions of silicon material, granular or FBI silicon demonstrates a significant advantage due to its substantially lower energy consumption during processing compared to conventional rod-shaped silicon. The carbon emissions from FBI silicon are only less than half of those from rod-shaped silicon. As shown as the trend chart, which tracks granular silicon capacity and market share, both the capacity and the market share of granular silicon have been steadily increasing. And by 2025, granular silicon already accounts for over 20% of total silicon usage. On the other hand, reducing the amount of silicon material used in PV modules can also help to reduce the carbon emission. As illustrated in this chart, silicon consumption per watt has declined significantly as well. This reduction is attributed to the transition from a wave thickness of 170 micrometers to the current 130 micrometers, the adoption of tungsten diamond wire, and continuous improvements in cell efficiency. As a result, silicon consumption per watt now has fallen below 2 micrograms per watt. In the cell segment, we can also observe numerous initiatives aimed at reducing carbon emissions. the mining of silver require approximately 250 MWh of electricity per ton, resulting in very high carbon emissions. Additionally, with silver price remaining elevated, reducing silver usage not only reduces costs but also significantly decreases the carbon footprint of PV modules. Thanks to continuous improvements in screen printing and paste optimization, along with the zero-BB technology, the silver paste consumption per watt for TOPCon cells has rapidly decreased from 12 to 14 micrograms per watt in the first quarter in 2023 to the current only 8 to 9 micrograms per watt. Even for BC technology, silver paste consumption has dropped to less than 9 micrograms per watt as well. In contrast, the mining of coke requires only about 10 MWh of electricity per ton, resulting in significantly lower carbon emissions compared to silver. The PV industry is actively promoting the use of silver copper paste or the pure copper paste. Firstly, regarding the silver copper paste, it has already being widely used in heat junction technology. As for TOPCon, some manufacturers have begun pilot testing and is expected to be introduced on a small scale by 2026. As for copper paste, pilot testing is currently on the way for BC technology, with small-scale adoption also anticipated by 2026. Furthermore, zero-BB technology effectively facilitates the adoption of low-temperature paste and reduce soldering temperatures, making it another valuable means of lowering carbon emissions. In terms of mass production, we can see that junction and BC already use this approach on larger scale, while some TOPCon manufacturers have also begun using it. In the module segment, we can also observe manufacturers' efforts to reduce carbon emissions. For example, aluminum frames have a relatively high carbon footprint, and more and more PV module makers are adopting steel frames or composite frames. From the carbon emission perspective, the carbon footprint of steel frame is only about 20% of that of aluminum frames, and their cost is also lower. By 2025, the scale of steel frame usage is expected to exceed 10 gigawatts. As for composite frames, since their primary material are fiberglass and resin, their carbon emissions are only about 15% of those of conventional aluminum frames, while their cost is also lower. By 2025, the adoption of composite frame is projected to reach around 10 gigawatts as well. Furthermore, the use of recycled aluminum is becoming common in the PV industry. By skipping the high energy consumption processes, recycled aluminum generates only about 10% of the carbon emissions of primary aluminum. Although it is rare for recycled aluminum to be used solely to produce frames, frame manufacturers have reported that they had used recycled aluminum in large quantities, mainly by mixing it with primary aluminum to produce frames. Moreover, frames made with recycled aluminum are favored by ESG as well. Okay, now we start the part 3. Next, I will briefly share our understanding of perovskite technology. While perovskite has been considered as the next generation PV technology after crystalline silicon, firstly, we can see that theoretical efficiency limit of crystalline silicon technology is only around 29.1%, while the efficiency limit for single junction perovskite sales is around 33%, and for tandem sales, it can even reach about around 45%. Regarding crystalline silicon technology, although the industry ecosystem is matched and the costs are low, the efficiency of crystalline silicon module has reached around 23 to 25%, and the efficiency of mass-produced cells is approaching its physical limit. So there is very limited room for further efficiency improvements in the future. As for single junction perovskite cells, although the current mass production efficiency is still around 70%, there is still significant potential for future improvements. Additionally, perovskite offers advantages such as no material usage, flexible and eco-friendly. However, the biggest challenge remains product stability. For tandem technology, perovskite combined with crystalline silicon are popular now based on manufacturers' showcased products. Module efficiency have reached around 27%. Similarly, the greatest advantage lies in the substantial potential for future efficiency improvements. The four-terminal tandem structure of crystalline silicon and the perovskite is regarded as the most likely tandem structure to be commercialized first due to its relatively simple process. However, the biggest challenge for tandem modules also remain product stability, given that the lateral room for further efficiency improvements in crystalline silicon and the significant potential for perovskite technology. That's why perovskite is widely regarded as the next generation PV technology after crystalline silicon. Although perovskite still face reliability challenges, significant progress has been made in these years. Multiple professional perovskite manufacturers have already completed or planned gigawatt scale capacity, such as GCL, utilized RenShai, and so on. However, from the perspective of technology type, among them, most still focus on researching single junction perovskites with module products mainly sized around 2.88 square meters. Besides, nearly all Tier 1 crystalline silicon manufacturers have also ventured into tandem technology, mainly in the form of two-terminal or four-terminal structures. However, most efforts remain in the R&D stage, with only a few companies having established pilot production lines. Although perovskite had already achieved the gigawatt level production capacity at present, actual shipments of perovskite products remain relatively low. The products are still mainly used in demonstration projects or pilot initiatives. Although perovskite boasts a high theoretical efficiency limit, it currently still face a series of industrialization challenges, mainly related to cost, stability, and difficulty in large area deposition. In terms of cost, the capex investment remains as high as 800 RMB per gigawatt. The bill of material cost for perovskite modules has reached around 11 US cents per watt, far exceeding the total cost of crystalline silicon, which only around stands at 9 USD cents per watt. Additionally, while the yield rate of perovskite has improved to around 19%, it still lags behind that of crystalline silicon. The core issue still lies in the immaturity of the perovskite supply chain. As for challenge of large area deposition, controlling the uniformity of perovskite thin films is particularly difficult. While champion cells often demonstrate a high efficiency, this efficiency significantly decreases when the product size is scaled up. The biggest challenge for perovskite currently remains stability, poor thermal stability, and issues related to ion migration. Given that the perovskite products are currently tested using the same IEC standard as crystalline silicon modules, where crystalline silicon modules can pass tests at 3 times of the standard, while perovskite modules barely meet the baseline. This explains why the lifetime of perovskite module is currently estimated at around 10 years. Overall, despite the notable progress in perovskite technology, breakthrough in stability are still needed. Only when product stability gains market acceptance, then it is meaningful to discuss when perovskite might replace crystalline silicon technology. Okay, as a time limit, I will not make a summary. Additionally, in 2026, we will officially launch our new customer and perovskite reports. If you are interested in subscribing, please feel free to contact us. Next, Alan will take over to host the following Q&A session. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Derek, for that. That is a comprehensive view on the technology trend. And now that we have connected the dots between the India's momentum, European turning points, and the technology evolution, so I guess it is time to turn the conversation over to you. I would like to invite all of our speakers, that Jonathan, Alan, and Derek. And we have the whole 30 minutes for this final Q&A session. We have been collecting your questions via the Slido through all of the meeting, and I will direct them to the relevant analysts later. So yeah, I guess I've been screening and direct them the most relevant. So I guess the first one would be, the question will be going to the Jonathan. So Jonathan, I guess the first question is, because can India domestic solar cell production capacity would be realized on time, or any technological and supply chain or other policy challenge or issue they might face in the short term?
Okay, thank you, Alan. About this question, we expect that the local cell capacity won't be sufficient until around the end of 2026 at the earliest. This is mainly because it really takes the capabilities of India cell manufacturers. For example, improving production yields, moving from trial production to full-scale manufacturing, as Derek mentioned before, about the ramp-up question, and most importantly, reducing cost is a problem. As I mentioned in the PowerPoint, the Indian cell price is nearly 0.14 cents per watt, 0.14 USD per watt. So that's pretty high, higher than the Chinese and Southeast Asian cells. So moving from trial production to full-scale manufacturing, and most importantly, reducing costs, as I mentioned, as all of this takes time, and it takes a lot of time.
Okay, thanks, Jonathan. So I would like to more follow up on here. So especially the cell capacity in India is picking up soon, as in your presentation. But please also could you share the actual production or estimate the capacity? I mean, not the nominate one. I mean the actual capacity might be in the 26 or even the next 3 years. Jonathan?
Okay. So about this question, I would think the supply to demand ratio, but you mean about cell capacity will be on time on 2026, 2027. But we think the supply to demand ratio of around 1.5 would be an ideal level. I mean, like cell capacity is not even right now. But I mean, module capacity versus annual demand, India has already exceeded that by more than 2 times this year, and more module capacity is still coming online. So we believe that any future investment in module capacity should be carefully evaluated. Honestly, there's no need to repeat the same mistakes we saw in the China market right now.
All right. Thank you, Jonathan. So I saw another interesting questions from the Slido. So I think this question is going to the Alan. Alan, the question is the flat growth of the installation in the European market also have shown in your slides. I believe it is this condition is foreseeable. It is solid. And so what are we going now? Where are we at? And it is about the end of the party in the European market.
Okay, and this is a question. I just see the Slido, and many of you are asking the same questions. I don't want to be too optimistic, but here I know that most of you are in the solar industry, and the growth in European solar market really is going to be flat. They will have the room for the future growth, but it will not be that big. But I don't think that this is the end, but in fact, it is the beginning of the new chapter, new stories. The European grid bottleneck, maybe it have driven down the solar installation, but in fact, it brings the new future for the solar plus BESS plus storage and the co-location project. And once we install more solar and storage, and with new grid investment coming online, we have a more healthier grid and we have more storage. We can actually bring more solar into the system in the future and reduce the curtailment, keep the grid healthier at the same time. So I believe that it is a win-win situation. It is not the end of the story.
All right. I'm so like this response. That is so optimistic. And yeah, I got another question about the European from Slido. So the question is, in the InfoLink view, can the European market be the next major destination for the India manufacturer, considering the NZIA and the US tariff issues?
Okay. I will talk into like 2 examples, and I believe that the question itself is from the Indian, maybe solar cell manufacturers and module manufacturers. And to be honest, I don't think European market is an easy market for India manufacturers. For the first part is like we have the first example of Italy. Italy's NZIA complement. It requires to use the non-China like modules, inventors, all sort of things, non-China. So perhaps this part in India's market, in India's module, it can reach their criteria. But you have to compare the price and cost with other non-China modules. Like for example, Steel is a Chinese company, but in Southeast Asia, their module price is really low, around 5 to 6 cents. Can we achieve it, the same module price? And the other like new expansion in maybe South Africa, in other new emerging market, they also have module capacity. And can we compare our cost structure and the pricing with them, and we have the competitivities in the future? This is the first part. And the other part, like in France, maybe we have the new NZIA requirements in next year for the low carbon footprint. But in this part, I don't think India manufacturer, they have the ability to reach the level, because currently most of the electricity demand, the electricity supply is from the fossil fuel and gas. So the carbon footprint score is really difficult to compare with the maybe in France or in Italy, in other countries, their carbon footprint score. Yeah.
Okay, so Alan, thanks for the response. So I have another question. It is about I mean it is a similar question, and there's India have. And there's a question about it. Is India have many module manufacturers that without the relevant. I'm sorry, not this one. My misunderstanding. So Another similar question is that if the European is not adding the solar, I mean by the flat growth, and also in the meanwhile the U.S. implying the ADDs. But however, India will have the overcapacity condition as we have mentioned earlier. So what is the next high growth market? What is the any one of the emerging market such as Australia have someone mentioned is Slido. Is that Australia or other market that we could play with? Could Jonathan take this question?
Okay, thank you, Alan. We believe that attention should be given to the Middle East and Africa markets, as Alan mentioned before, which together can provide around like 40 to 50 gigawatts annual demand in the future. But as for Australia, its solar market is already like relatively mature, with annual demand of about 45 gigawatts and limited growth potential. Its focus is gradually shifting toward the energy storage sector. But as you said about like India oversupply side, it's important to note that the Middle East, Africa, and Australia currently have no restrictions on imports of China's products. So, as Alan mentioned before, can these markets module can compare with China's price and cost? So, given today's global oversupply issue, mainly driven by China's massive capacity, it can no longer be resolved simply by just single market demand growth. We have to deal on the supply side right now. So it can be resolved simply by demand growth in these markets.
Okay, thanks, Jonathan. I totally got that. But as you have mentioned about the demand, I mean locally supply chain, we have also find out that there is somehow the oversupply on the module segment in the India market especially. So may I ask, what is your perspective on the oversupply? It is happening. Is this really happening now? And what will be the next, or when will be the might be the washout period for within the next few years?
As I mentioned in the presentation, we believe that by around mid-2027 at the latest, India solar cell capacity should be sufficient to meet domestic demand. It's even possible that by 2028, that solar cells may face oversupply. So, however, the same issue remains during the period as shown in my presentation. The price of Indian solar cells is still much higher than those from China and Southeast Asia. So, about your question about restructuring phase, I believe it will happen in 2027 and 2028. By that time, I believe the cell capacity will oversupply with module. So the demand cannot match the oversupply situation. So but in the short term, whether Indian cell manufacturers can overcome technical challenges in the short term and gradually reduce production costs and product efficiency is the key question right now. So I don't believe that we have to consider about the oversupply situation in the 2026. You have to looking at the 2028 and maybe 2027. I think it's a long-term problem, but short term we have to how do you compare with the Chinese products and Southeast Asian products? That's the main problem right now.
Thanks, Jonathan. So I have another question related also in the India market. So there's a question from Slido. There's someone asks, over the longer terms, only the R&D led players like LONGi or Tongwei have made the real money. But however, do you think the large India players can make money and with very low R&D expenses? I guess we have to go this question to go to Derek. So Derek, what is your perspective on this? Since you have tracked on closely with the R&D segment within the supply chain, so and especially in China. So what is your perspective? Could India players maybe they could just buy the second-hand equipment and import into the India, install it, and start to produce their products. So yeah, what is your perspective on this?
Of course, investments in research and development drives technological progress, but a large amount of such investments does not necessarily guarantee profitability. Yeah, at present, Indian manufacturers mainly follow the technologies or the technology routes from Chinese manufacturers. Yeah, their profits mainly depend on the supply and demand relationship. Yeah, given that there is currently low significant supply. Yeah, in India. So even with very low research and development investments, yeah, I think India manufacturers can still make a profits. Yeah, don't need to study from Chinese manufacturers. Yeah, I think. Yeah.
All right. So okay. Thank you, Derek. So there's a question about also I believe it is under coverage. So the question is, how much will the cell fuel usage still be reduced in cell manufacturing during the 26 and the 27?
Okay. What do you mean is the silver consumption, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. At present, some manufacturers we had monitor that they have achieved the silver consumption to around 8 micrograms per watt. Yeah, just as showing in my report. Now the mainstream is from the 8 to 9, but the mainstream is still the 9 micrograms per watt. But just as I said, some manufacturers have even achieved the consumption of 8 micrograms per watt now. So for regarding the cell capacity in 2026, I think it can be reduced to the mainstream at micrograms per watt next year. The main optimization method is still based on the past optimization, especially the steel mesh optimization, I think, because currently the tier 1 steel manufacturer has introduced the steel mesh screen. Yeah, it can also help to decrease the silver consumption. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Derek. Thank you for this one. Another from the bill of material question, it is about the frame that you have mentioned, the steel frame and the composite frame that both perform a really competitive cost and the low carbon emissions. So what is your perspective? What is your how is likely it is going to the wide scale wide adoption in the near term? In the near future?
Okay. Steel frames or composite frames, just as I showed, it can perform even better than aluminum frames in terms of the cost and low carbon emissions. Additionally, steel frames and composite frames can meet the IC standard in terms of reliability and weather resistance as well. And even the composite frames have better weather resistance performance in offshore scenarios. From the two perspectives, the large scale promotion of steel frames and composite frames is highly likely and is already happening. However, aluminum frames have been widely used in PV industry since the beginning. Considering market usage habits, it will take a long time for steel or composite frames to replace aluminum frames. So, but it is very, very certain that the market share of the composite or steel frames, will continue to grow in next years. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Derek. So I guess your point is that the current technology or the frame is like it starts since the very earlier period of the solar industry. But however, the new technology, new frame might adopt the very big market share in the near future. So it will take time, but it is happening. So I totally understood that. And I have another related question about the carbon emission. I believe I could go to Alan with this. So Alan, the question is, what is the carbon footprint reduction potential for the solar module in the CO2? And what is that did you see for the 2030? And is there any international CO2 calculations data available as your understanding at this time that you could share with all our attendees?
Okay, I will first answer the simple question. The second question, is there an international standard, right? Currently, I don't see there is a standard for all of the country in the world. In France, they have their standard. In South Korea, they have their standard. Even in China, they have their standard. But how to combine all these standards to become a new solar module standard, like for the agency to test their module, it will be another story. So this is the second question. And for the first question, I believe it's about the carbon reduction for carbon footprint reduction for the solar module, right? And right now, there are very few manufacturers can actually meet the 530 kg CO2 kilowatt P this requirement. And only Biotech Solar. Biotech Solar is currently the only European manufacturer that can manufacture this kind of module. And in the past, we have the company like Meyer Burger, but they have quit the market. So currently, it is not viable. And now in the newest Analyst, there is a new Chinese module that have been on the list. It is 𝐭𝐮𝐫𝐧𝐼 module. And we have checked with them. 𝐭𝐮𝐫𝐧𝐼 module, they use all non-China sourcing from polysilicon wafer cell to module. So that's why they can be qualified for the low carbon footprint new requirements. And the other company that people are asking is DMAG. DMAG is interesting. They once be put it on the list of low carbon footprint for 530, but now they have be eliminated from the list. It's because that they have some data issue with the agency. Yeah. So hope someday in the future they can be put on the list again.
Thanks, Alan. Since I have you here, so there's the other two questions I need your help from the Slido. So the first one is, will a solar plus storage become a must-have solution for the utility scale, and what will it become? And what is your expectation about the volume, about the policy, about the market condition? What is your expectation in the next few years about this solar plus, the ESS solution, especially in the European market?
I have seen on the Slido is mostly about the ground mount large scale solar project. So for two parts, on the revenue side, the storage really helps to come back to soften the impact of falling capture price and the falling PPA price. And it led you to shift the energy from low value hours in summer and to high demand hours, like maybe in winter or spring. And it makes the project revenue curve much smoother and predictable. This is for the revenue side. And for revenue side, you have to be noticed is that another important part is that storage, especially battery energy storage, their cost is coming down year after year. And as the battery take up a small share of the total system cost, it becomes easier for large-scale ground mount project to justify adding storage to their solar project. So from my perspective, as the economic improve and the system becomes stable, the cost is driven down. We expect more utility scale solar project to integrate storage as a standard part of their design. This is for the revenue part. On the grid side, grid connection, from what we are seeing today, most co-location projects are still residential and household. I believe the number is around 80% to 90% are still residential to household. And for ground mount project is really relatively small. But as more utility scale solar connect to the grid, the pressure for the distribution grid network will become only increase but not decrease. And that's why many countries are already adding storage requirement or giving extra point, extra score for hybrid project to their tendon, to their auction design. And if you look at the biggest solar market in the world, for example, like in China, you can see the same trend. Policy like direct renewables connection and self-generation, self-consumption. These are all respond to the grid congestion and the stability issue. And storage plays a really key role in this transition because it gives the system visibility. Like most of the country now are adopting demand response, shifting peak hour and reduce the stress of the feeders. So even though co-location start with household, residential, but because of this issue, grid connection, grid pressure, the feasibility needs, and system stability, we believe that there will be more reason for storage to plus into the ground mount or large scale project for solar. Yeah.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So I guess yeah, we got the very clear viewpoint. We have the two perspectives. The first would be the economic. There would be the decrease of the cost of the BESS system recently, and the second one, most of the developers would more prefer to stabilize their revenue and make their revenue to be more under their expectation. And the second side would be on the grid pressure. More and more, not only home use solar and also the utility scale solar will be connected to the grid. So I have also another question about the grid side, and you have also present the DSO map. So what is the simplest way for the developers to reduce the grid-related risk, and how could they mitigate them? Not only from the DSO map, and what is your suggestions for them?
Okay, I have to say there's no simple way for reducing related risk, but I can give you some point, like looking at the local DSO structure, maybe how many DSO distribution system operators they have operated in this area, especially in the area that you are not familiar. Perhaps maybe you are the enterprise, you are the corporation across the world, you invest in many area, many projects. You have to look at the local area, what is the DSO structure and how efficient they can be. And the second part is the connection queues behavior. Some DSO moving really fast and some they are not moving at all. So you have to know their behavior. For the third part is the local reinforcement plan. You have to check with the local DSO with their grid enforcement plan to understand whether your area has their grid involvement, their upgrade coming in the future or not. And just doing all this base homework, you can eliminate many risk sites before you spend time and money with it. And once you have a site in mind, please, communication is the best, and you have to start talking to the system operator early, understand their process and timeline, give you a better advantage and reduce the future risk.
Excellent, Alan. Thanks for the suggestions. So I guess I will make you to take a rest for a while. And meanwhile, there's a question draw my eyeball. And I thought it is a simple but very interesting question. So the question is, what is the % market price of the perovskite module in China? So I'm not sure there's actual and the real product perovskite radar have published in China at this time, but I will give this question to Derek. So Derek, could you answer about a bit questions here?
Yeah. Just as I mentioned in my report, because currently the perovskite module now many used on the demonstration projects or the pilot initiatives. So now some customers they really purchase some broadcast module, and the volume is very small. The price I heard is around 1.5 RMB to 2 RMB per watt, like that. Yeah. But the volume is very small. Yeah.
All right, I see. I thought that is fair enough at this time. So I got another question is about the pricing in China, and I guess it is under the coverage from the Jonathan. So Jonathan, there's a question about the pricing in India. Sorry about that. So Jonathan, there's someone asking the sale pricing in the India market. Could you share about this topic a bit, and maybe have more color on the sales supply chain and the module relationship within the India supply chain?
In fact, we believe that this price around like 13 to 15 cents per watt can remain stable in the short term, at least until Q2 2026, which is when the LLCM policy is implemented. Due to stable domestic demand for solar cells in India right now, the price should generally hold. But in the long run, if India's cell capacity, as I mentioned time and time, continues to ramp up on a large scale, this price will certainly keep falling. Essentially, it will follow the same trajectory as the Chinese market.
Okay. Thank you. So I just want to follow up on here. So what is the actual, the pricing trend? Your forecast in the short term. You have just shared about the short term, but what is the like a mid-term or the, even the long term about the sale in India? It might be that just the decrease trend about the pricing.
I believe it will go to like 10 to 12 cents per watt, because I believe, as I heard before, like new manufacturers in India, like those new cell manufacturers, their cost right now is like above 10 cents per watt. So I believe since they are not like reducing costs right now, I believe in the long term, the price right now is like 13 to 15 cents right now. It will gradually like cutting down and decrease to like 10 to 11 cents in the long term. Maybe that timeline will be in like 2027 or 2028 right now.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. So if there's any attendees from India, just feel free to submit your question. We still have like 15 minutes for this Q&A session. So if there's any questions about India, just feel free to drop it. So Derek, I thought there's another question. It is going to the TOPCon first and second and the third generation. Now we have shipped. We are having to shift to the third generation at this time. So what is the upgrade drive the highest cost, and what is the production risk could limit their profitability?
Currently, let me think. Yeah. Currently, if the customer directly upgrade to TOPCon 3.0, including EPD, polyfinger, and module retrofits, the total capex investments for the upgrade will reach approximately 17 million RMB per gigawatt. The total cost is so huge. Because currently module makers have just began to implement TOPCon 3.0. So considering the huge investments involved, currently only the leading or the tier 1 module makers have this kind of plans. Regarding the risk in production, at present the main difficulty lies in the multi-cut technology, because the zero gap technology has been introduced. As we know, the actual cells and cells will overlap. Which is very similar to the earlier single module technology. The module yield control may be a difficulty. However, compared to the difficulties or risks in the manufacturing side, I think the risk will be greater for those manufacturers that they don't have any plan to upgrade their production line. Yeah, then their production or then their products will lack of competitiveness. Yeah, which will lead them to be more likely to be eliminated in the current oversupplied market environment like that. Yeah.
Okay, so my understanding is that the core value is not only the capital expenditure capabilities. So it is also about their capability to utilize the technology and also control their costs during during the production. Sorry about that. So about another question about the TOPCon compared to the back contact is also the buzz topic recently in the market. So since the TOPCon still face the major UV stability issues, so do you expect the back contact technology will gain more market share, or will the TOPCon UV problem it is under the solving condition right now?
Okay. Firstly, I have to say that UVI, this is not a new problem, but this kind of problem has been resolved by the TOPCon players, I think maybe last year. Yeah, mainly by adding the aluminum oxide layer, then the UVID problem can be solved. Yeah. I had talked much about the advantage of BC. BC had already demonstrated its efficiency advantage, and the cost has been significantly reduced. Currently, the biggest obstacle or the bottleneck for the development of BC is the current market situation. Yeah. With severe overcapacity and many module or many cell makers, the lack of funds to increase the BC supply ability. Yeah, we use that in the case that can recover rapidly, then the market share of BC is bound to increase further as we project in our table. Yeah.
Okay, then Derek. So guys, about the TOPCon and back contact and perovskite, any new technology, just reach out to Derek. He's definitely the expert within this supply chain. So I have another question to Derek. So Derek, what is the approximate market proportion of the TOPCon first and second and third generation? What is their market share respectively in the 26?
Regarding TOPCon let me go through it. Regarding TOPCon 2.0 generation, based on the current production capacity of the polyfinger, in my report, it had showed it had reached around 75 gigawatts. However, we observe that manufacturers still have plans for further expansion. Additionally, for TOPCon 3.0, although the current layout is only around 40 gigawatts, other leading players will follow in 2026. Considering that the market will prioritize the consumption of high efficiency products first. We estimate that the approximate ratio for TOPCon 1.0 to 2.0 to 3.0 is like the 70 to 20 to 10, like that.
70, 20, and 10. That is a perfect number. Thank you, Derek. Thank you for sharing us about our very new technology and about any viewpoint you might have. So I have another question. I might go with get back to the India market, and I believe this question is going to the Jonathan. So Jonathan, we may have your help a bit. So there is someone asking our thoughts on the solar cells oversupply in India by it's going to happening by the 28th. And would that be the delayed scaling sales capacity can get delayed? I'm not sure that this could be a comparison within in the same question, but Jonathan, could you mind clarified about the cell capacity and any delay, or it is just under your expectation at this time?
Yeah, thank you, Alan. There's a lot of questions asking about cell oversupply situation or maybe a module oversupply situation. But as I mentioned in the presentation, I would believe that around May 2027 or at the latest, India's solar cell capacity should be sufficient to meet domestic demand, and earliest is the Q4 2026. And it's even possible that by 2028, solar cells may face oversupply. However, the same issue remains. I mentioned like 2 or 3 times. Showing my presentation, the price of India's solar cell is still much higher than those China and Southeast Asia cell. And those challenges about the tech issues, about the low production yields and the high cost is all the problem we're facing right now. So whether the Indian cell manufacturer can overcome those tech challenges and gradually reducing the production costs and furthermore the price and maybe furthermore the efficiency, it may maybe improve their efficiency is a key question right now.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. So I guess we have another question about the. I believe we could have some response on the BESS a little bit. I thought, yeah, I thought that is fine. Okay, so Alan, I guess that you have covered. I know you have covered a little bit on the BESS recently. So there's a question about why the discussion is on the solar market, but today BESS is equally. Can you share your insight on the ESS manufacturer in India and constraint? Just before Alan responds to it, just my personally sharing about the ESS manufacturer in the India might be constrained within the cost, the cost. Since there's a mature supply chain in China, they have the sales and the BESS system, mature supply chain and mature technology to monitor their cost structure. So I believe in the short term, it is hard for the India manufacturer to have the same competitive cost compared with the Chinese manufacturer. But I'm not sure I'm on the right point. So Alan, could you share your point a bit on it?
Okay. Although I'm not the expert in storage, but I believe that the manufacturing difficulties or the problem is all the similar problem compared to solar or even other industry. And for most of the manufacturing side, you have to have 2 pathways. One is you have to have your push policies, and the other is the pull policy. In like European or in US, they call the carrot and the stick. So for this 2 part, for the carrot, you have to have the incentive and you have to have the local content to let investor, that developer willing to set up a project for local manufacturing in India. And the other part is the stick. You have to have the maybe anti-dumping or even other tariff to support your own domestic market and to make your market suitable for manufacturing ecosystem. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So thanks, brother. On the follow-up question is what is the grid constraint for the solar plus the ESS solution in the India market and even the US and the European market? Yeah. What is the, if we are going to the solar plus the ESS, where are we going at?
Okay. And for co-location or solar plus BESS, mostly, I believe that the question is looking across like India, US, and Europe. And the common problem is that the grid constraint for the solar power storage actually look much smaller, but it did have some constraint for it. And in all these three regions, the interconnection fees are extremely long, and sometimes it takes several years to build a new project. So this is the most important part. And the other part is the revenue. Currently, although we are seeing the power price getting higher, but as I mentioned, the capture price is getting lower. So in the bright picture, it should be fit for BESS. But in fact, some project with BESS, they didn't get more revenue. Instead, they are losing money. And mostly it's because the system design is not predictable, and they cannot predict the future capture price. So this is the other risk that we are facing. And finally, storage is becoming more important, but the market doesn't always have clear framework, clear policy for how many storage get compensate or integrate into the grid. And this adds another layer of uncertainty. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Alan. Thanks for your time. So I'm going to have another maybe the last or the second last question. I'm going to Derek. So Derek, there's a question about the newest technology about tandem modules. So the question is, when we can realistic see the tandem module in the mass production, I mean the real production there. And which manufacturers, which players would be the best positioned to dominate the market in the first wave?
Okay. Firstly, regarding the efficiency of ProSky's tandem modules reaching 20x, based on the showcased products from the exhibition, achieving 27% is already feasible. Given this progress, we believe that tandem modules with 28% efficiency could be realized by 2027, or even the end of 2026, However, product stability, still remains highly uncertain. Regarding which companies are likely to become the dominant players in the market, it remains relatively difficult to define and present. However, considering that 4 terminal structure modules are expected to achieve mass production first, manufacturers that both invest in ProSky's technology and crystalline silicon technology, are mostly likely to emerge as early adopters. So here, I think GCL, serves as a notable example.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Derek. I guess it is the final edition of our Q&A session. So that brings us to the final. So thank you all of our speakers, Jonathan, Alan, and Derek, for tackling those questions with us today. For those whose question couldn't be answered at this time, don't worry, we'll filter and compile them into the document. So guys, to receive the full seminar presentation slides and the Q&A document, we kindly to ask you complete the feedback survey questionnaire. Just scan the QR code and please complete the questionnaire and give some feedback, and you could receive the full presentation. And the link will be also be sent to your email shortly. So thanks for you guys. I have seen lots of my contact. Thank you, Fernando and Sebastian and Mr. Stickhart. Thanks for you guys showing up today. We hope this seminar has provided you a clear and backed view of your global PV outlooks in the 2026. Thank you again for joining us today for the InfoLink Consulting Seminar. We appreciate for your time and looking forward to see you in the next event. Thank you. Have a good evening, or have a good night.
See you. Goodbye.
See you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.